In this presentation, I would like to talk about deep reinforcement learning for anatomically accurate musculoskeletal models to investigate neural control of movement. I would like to start by considering how humans and other primates make complex limb movements. The central nervous system issues muscle excitations to different muscles, which in turn generate forces to produce movement. This process is simple to describe, but it is very hard to completely understand it. That is why motor control remains a grand challenge in neuroscience and biomechanics. Some of the complexities include system delays, non-linear nature of muscle actuators, and complex muscular tendon dynamics involved in this process. In this presentation, I would like to discuss whether neuromechanical simulations combined with deep reinforcement learning can provide us some insights into neural strategies that are implemented by motor cortex or brain to produce these movements. In neuromechanical simulations, there is a controller that represents the central nervous system in the biological framework. Similarly, there is a musculoskeletal model that represents the body and simulation that represents the actual movement. In this slide, we will look at how we can consider this process as a feedback control model. As discussed before, we can consider brain as a complex neuromechanical controller in this framework. Similarly, we can think of the body as represented by a musculoskeletal model and actual movement represented by neuromechanical simulation. The controller issues action or muscle excitations to the model, and the model dynamics are forward simulated using laws of physics to produce a resulting movement. This simulator is also used to provide feedback to the controller, and the feedback may consist of sensory or proprioceptive feedback. Here we will look at the task that we use to implement the proposed strategy. A monkey was trained to produce a cycling movement at 8 different speeds for a just reward. The kinematics and the corresponding neural activity were recorded. The neural activity was recorded from the motor cortex of the monkey. The data is obtained from Shreya Saxena's paper, which I have cited below. Further details about the task and experimental data can be found in this paper. In order to produce a neuromechanical simulation, we first developed a monkey limb model. We adopted and established 39 muscle anatomically accurate or model from a cock monkey to an equivalent Majaku model to enable deep reinforcement learning applications on it. The existing models in OpenSim are anatomically accurate, but the downside is that these models are very computationally expensive to simulate. So OpenSim results in very slow forward simulations, which makes the downstream applications of deep reinforcement learning inefficient. On the other hand, the existing models in Majaku are not anatomically accurate, but the simulation framework is very simple, and it produces very fast forward simulations of the dynamics as compared to OpenSim. Therefore, we first optimize the parameters of Majaku model to get physically and physiologically accurate movements. To be specific, we optimize the parameters of the Majaku model so that same input results in same forward simulation trajectories in both OpenSim and Majaku. The resulting model in Majaku was anatomically accurate and produced fast forward simulations. Then we developed a simulator. We created a rotating target to present a circular trajectory. The target trajectory was made to follow the experimentally observed kinematics. The developed model in Majaku can reach forward simulation speeds that are 600 times faster than those of OpenSim. Now I will show a video of a monkey performing the task while the kinematics and neural activity from its motor cortex were being recorded. Now I will show a video of simulation of same behavior in Majaku. Now I will talk about how we use deep reinforcement learning to train a neuromechanical controller. We developed an actor-critic architecture to represent the controller. We also designed a reward function to derive the R model to track the rotating target with minimum muscle effort. The minimum muscle effort constraint resulted in much smoother movement. The feedback signals that we considered consisted of muscle activations, joint positions, and velocities, as well as hand and target positions and velocities. We modified the actor to consist of recurrent neural network to mimic the motor cortex neuronal structure. The actor here represents a mapping from state to probability distribution over actions, and therefore can be considered as a controller. The critic represents a mapping from state and action pair to Q value of that state action pair. We trained the resulting agent using maximum entropy deep reinforcement learning framework to track the rotating target at 3 different speeds. In this slide, I will discuss the results. The trained agent tracked the experimentally observed kinematics with a very high accuracy. As can be seen in this figure, the mean squared error between the simulated and experimental trajectories is very low across all the speeds. We observe a very high correlation between the two trajectories as well. Then we analyzed the actor network's activity in low dimensional space and compared it with the recorded motor cortex activity. It turns out that the actor network implements similar neural strategies to implement this task. We can see that both for the controller and for the motor cortex, the activity in low dimensional space is a big ellipse for each speed. Moreover, the trajectories stack on top of one another along the speed dimension across different speeds. Then we perform canonical correlation analysis to quantify the similarity between the simulated and experimental trajectories. We first reconstructed the actor network's activity using CCA in the observed M1 space. As can be seen from the figure, the trajectories are highly correlating. We found that the mean correlation with the recorded M1 activity was 0.94 in the reconstructed M1 space. So we can conclude that the network trajectories quantitatively and qualitatively match experimentally recorded M1 data. To conclude, we can validate that the deep reinforcement learning mimics observed neural trajectories for limb movements. Deep reinforcement learning also generalizes to unseen conditions. This framework allows for perturbations in the muscle and kinematic space, and we see that the learned model acts like a feedback controller while correcting for these perturbations. Finally, I would like to acknowledge my lab and advisor, Shreya Saxena, who is also a co-author on this.